Good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the Daily Factor. My name is Faraz Patel. I'll be in your company for just under the next hour. We have a jam-packed show again. Of course, starting up with our local updates, I'll be speaking to the MKMVA spokesperson and NEC member Carl Niehaus. And then, of course, we will be going to Palestine. We saw the Israeli right-wing march that was happening on Tuesday, and we're going to get reactions there. Our community updates will be following on with that story, what happened in Crosby. Then, of course, we won't be having market updates today as Petri is still not around. He's taken some holiday, but of course we'll be catching up with President Cyril Ramaphosa and what he had to say during the Youth Day speech that he gave in Pietermaritzburg. And of course, we will be wrapping up with our sports update. But before anything, let's go to our COVID updates. And the numbers continue to rise. South Africa has recorded an increase of over 13,000 new COVID-19 infections in the last 24 hours. There's also been an increase in 940 hospital admissions and 136 deaths. The death toll now stands in South Africa at 58,180. Now let's go to our local updates. Now, the ANC had taken a decision to go ahead and disband the MKMVA. Of course, this is the Military Veterans Association. Then, of course, the MKMVA wanted to go ahead and meet with the ANC and, of course, its chairperson, Gwede Mantashe. Unfortunately, that did not happen and the meeting had collapsed. Of course, this would make the MKMVA quite upset. So joining me via Zoom to go ahead and discuss all of this, I would like to welcome the MKMVA NEC member and its national spokesperson, Mr. Carl Niehaus. Mr. Niehaus, good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us on the Daily Factor.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
Now, it's an absolute pleasure. So, Mr. Niehaus, of course, Monday didn't go according to plan what the MKMVA wanted. What did actually happen? Of course, there was supposed to be a meeting with Mr. Gwede Mantashe, but that didn't go according to plan.
You're quite correct to say that Monday didn't go according to plan. In fact, I think that is an understatement. We as Umkhonto weSizwe Military Veterans Association were hoping for a meeting with the national office bearers because we have written a letter to the Deputy Secretary General of the African National Congress, Comrade Jesse Duarte, and requested for an explanation and for a response to our concerns about the very abrupt and unilateral decision to disband Umkhonto weSizwe Military Veterans Association. Unfortunately, the meeting of the national office bearers deteriorated into what I would call a dictatorial situation, where the national chair simply allowed President Ramaphosa to state the position of the national office bearers, namely that Umkhonto weSizwe Military Veterans Association should be disbanded, and that a 9-member planning committee would be set up to plan for an Umkhonto weSizwe unitary conference. But when we wanted to ask questions about what is a very serious deviation from what the position of the African National Congress with regards to the planning of a MK National Unity Conference is all about, Mr. Mantashe, in a very abrupt and I would say bully-like fashion, said he's not interested in entertaining any questions or opinions. He's simply giving an order. And when our president and deputy president still tried to continue the conversation, he had just cut them out of the virtual Zoom meeting. Very strange, and the kind of behavior that one would not expect from the African National Congress. You know, I've been a member of the African National Congress now for 42 years. I'm used to an organization that is prepared to engage, that believes in internal democracy. And when there are differences of view, our approach always is to keep on talking until we can find each other. Now, none of this opportunity was granted to the senior leadership of Umkhonto we Sizwe Military Veterans Association in that very strange and I would say very unfortunate meeting that we had on Monday.
Mr. Niels, would you feel that it's a sign of disrespect from the ANC top six?
Yes, of course it is a sign of disrespect, and it is very unfortunate because Umkhonto we Sizwe Military Veterans Association had taken the decisions of the 54th National Conference of the African National Congress very seriously. We agreed about the resolution that there must be unity amongst all members or ex-veterans of Umkhonto we Sizwe. We had participated since early 2018 in what was known as a so-called six-a-side planning for a unitary conference, which was under the auspices of the Peace and Stability Committee, chaired by Comrade Tony Ngeni, and I must say very ably chaired by him. But suddenly, now out of the blue, while we participated fully, while our counterparts, the Umkhonto National Council, had actually abruptly withdrawn from the process last year, they are not punished, they are actually accommodated, while Umkhonto we Sizwe Military Veterans Association, for our loyalty and for our discipline, now seem to be punished. A very unfortunate situation.
Mr. Niels, do you feel that the factionalism that we're seeing right now in the ANC could be the cause of what is currently happening right now?
We said in our statement that we issued after that unfortunate meeting that the behavior of the national office bearers was indeed factional. And in fact, that we had a situation where, as I've said, the MK National Council was rewarded in a very factional way for the ill discipline, while Umkhonto we Sizwe Military Veterans Association, that had acted in a very disciplined manner, is now actually being punished. And it cannot be that a decision is taken abruptly without any background information being provided, and all that happens is that we are being called into a meeting and said, you are disbanded. Politically, that is wrong, because there has to be respect for the members of Umkhonto we Sizwe Military Veterans Association, who are military veterans, who are people who have dedicated their lives to the liberation struggle. In fact, these are some of the most dedicated members of the African National Congress. But legally, it is also wrong, because Umkhonto we Sizwe Military Veterans Association is a separate association. It is not a league like the African National Congress Women's League and Youth League. It is not accommodated in the African National Congress's constitution. And therefore, the ANC actually has no legal powers to try to disband Umkhonto we Sizwe Military Veterans Association. It is not our preference to take the ANC to court about this matter. We do not like African National Congress members taking each other to court. But I can assure you that if we do go to court, Umkhonto we Sizwe Military Veterans Association will most definitely win that court case, because there is no legal provision for the African National Congress to take this illegal and unilateral action.
Mr. Niels, now I've seen in a number of media houses, of course, your president, Mr. Kebe Mapachwe, saying that by all means the MKMVA will not be forced to be disbanded. So what happens now in terms of the survival of the MKMVA? And you mentioned, of course, the potential, the hypothetical situation that, the MKMVA takes the ANC to court. What extreme will that take for the MKMVA to take the ANC to court? And of course, the disbandment topic. What would it take for the MKMVA to survive for the next coming few weeks?
Umkhonto we Sizwe Military Veterans Association will continue to function. We have not accepted this very wrong instruction of disbandment. And we will continue to carry out our duties. And the first and most important task that we have is to take care of the needs the privileges and the rights of MK veterans. That is why we've been established. We've worked very hard to get the Military Veterans Act of 2011 put in place, which gives particular rights in terms of housing, in terms of education and healthcare to MK veterans. And it is our duty to continue with that work. We cannot allow that work to be disrupted because our members expect from us to take care of them, and they deserve that they be taken care of because of the service and the liberation contribution that they made to our country. Now, with regards to the situation that we are faced with at the moment with the African National Congress, we will continue to be open to engage with the ANC. We hope that the leadership of the African National Congress will, so to speak, come to their senses, allow us to engage with them and get the information that we've requested. And we are prepared to work for a unitary conference, but not a unitary conference which is imposed, where the process that we have diligently participated in is suddenly disrupted, and certainly not a unitary conference where there's a clear bias towards one faction against us. It is interesting that the former head of the South African Defence Force, General Shoke, who was invited by the leadership of the African National Congress to become part of this 9-member committee that they now unilaterally are trying to establish to plan the unitary conference, had said that he's not prepared to do so. That in itself is already an indication that there are very senior members of the African National Congress and also of Umkhonto we Sizwe who are not prepared to participate in this process because they believe that this process is not fair and it doesn't accommodate everyone, including Umkhonto we Sizwe Military Veterans Association.
One final question, Mr. Niehaus. Have the MKMVA sought advice from the different structures of the ANC? Of course, there are the branches, the National Working Council, because we all know, of course, the ANC top 6 is the upper echelons. But have you been seeking advice from the other branches or the National Working Committee of the ANC to try and find a resolution to this?
Well, apparently this decision originally comes from the National Working Committee, and it was conveyed to us by the national office bearers. As I said, President Cyril Ramaphosa himself addressed this issue and said that this is the position. So, no, we haven't been able, although we have really wanted to, engage the National Working Committee further. Of course, all members of Umkhonto we Sizwe Military Veterans Association are members of the African National Congress. And we continue to engage with our fellow ANC members on this issue, and of course, especially also with our fellow Umkhonto we Sizwe Military Veterans Association members. And the feedback that we have received from them is that they do not want MKMVA to be disbanded, that they want us to continue with the work that we have been doing, that they also want the democratic process that led to the election of the National Executive Committee of MKMVA at our 5th National Conference in 2017 at the Birchwood Conference Center to be respected. And they've also pointed out to us that we adopted a number of resolutions at that conference. Among those is a resolution in terms of working for unity, but at the same time, also a resolution in favor of radical economic transformation. And of course, many resolutions about improving the lives and conditions of Umkhonto we Sizwe Military Veterans Association members. So all those resolutions, they feel we have a mandate to implement, and they want us to continue with our work, and it's indeed our intention to continue with our work and not to allow it to be disrupted.
Mr. Carl Niehaus, MKMVA NEC member and its national spokesperson, we'd like to thank you so much for joining us on the Daily Factor.
Thank you.
Well, there we go. It's going to be interesting to see what does happen. Of course, the MKMVA well, they want their recognition to remain, but it seems as if the ANC is moving in a different direction and wants to go ahead and disband the organization. Of course, you've just heard Mr. Kalniel saying they wanted to go ahead and have a meeting with ANC chairperson Gwede Mantashe. Unfortunately, they did not transcend into the way they would wanted it to be. Well, coming after the break, we will have our international updates. We'll be going to Palestine to discuss, of course, the events that happened this week, especially that on Tuesday. Stay tuned.